Hello, we're here today to talk about municipalities and energy. Energy. In our current global system, 90% of it is unsustainable. We have way too many fossil fuels being used, as I'll talk about, and we're fighting wars over such things. We're producing way too much CO2 and other greenhouse gases. As a result, we need to change our energy system. But the biggest secret is if we solve the energy problem, we solve all other problems. And, there are other human problems that probably cannot be resolved solely with energy. But if we have sufficient energy provided to us, we can live healthy lives, we can live productive lives, we can live with peace, and we can have much of what we want to be happy. How much are we using? If we look at the last 20 plus years, you can see world energy consumption has gone from about 400 exajoules to over 600 exajoules. Just to put it in perspective, 600 exajoules is about 570 quads, and I'm going to mention quads in a minute, so you need to know that unit. This 20 plus year growth is about 52% over that time. And although it appears maybe to be stabilizing a little bit in recent years, and COVID clearly showed up as a reduction in use, all anticipation is more and more people are going to be using energy. So many people lack energy and need it. And in fact, close to the majority of human beings lack the energy they need. They have energy poverty. And I'll discuss that in a future video. But the prospects are we're going to be using more energy in the future. And remember, we're using 570 quads currently. There are many reasons to shift our energy sources. Here are just a short list of the reasons why fossil fuels and nuclear energy is problematic and necessitates a shift. The most important reason to move away from fossil fuels could be argued the following. We are subsidizing it on a global basis by $7 trillion a year. Yeah, you heard that right, $7 trillion a year. And that's coming out of the IMF, and there's lots of other organizations. Here's the graph from the IMF. This is the last 8 years of subsidies, exceeding $5+ million and reaching a peak of 7 million. If you look closely at this, you see explicit subsidies versus implicit subsidies. Most of the subsidies are implicit. These are things like the hazards of climate change, health impacts of burning fossil fuels, military spending to protect national interests related to acquiring these resources. Fortunately, we have better alternatives. And let me discuss that within the context of cities. If we're thinking about price, if we're thinking about the cost of energy as being one of the challenges, we've seen increases in costs of energy in recent years. Notice this graph. This shows the dramatic reduction in the cost of solar voltaic installation, 83% reduction in the last 12 years, and anticipated to continue to go down over time. Notice the distinction in terms of the trajectories of these various curves I'm showing you. We anticipate that solar energy will be by far the most inexpensive form of energy moving forward. And we have tremendous amounts of abundance, and as described in previous videos. Now let's look at the U.S. energy consumption. This is put out by the Lawrence Livermore National Lab. It's a very useful graph chart to understand. It's a very interesting and useful diagram to inspect. Let's look at a couple key numbers. These are the three things I want you to take away from this. Number one, we use about 100 quads of energy. Now, quad is just a unit, a very large unit of energy. Don't need to discuss the details of that, but just it's useful because it's something we can get our hands around. 100 quad. Notice that in the electricity production, we're using 37.7 units of mostly coal and natural gas and nuclear, 37.7 quad of those energies to produce 13 units of electricity. And you see the big gray area. That's waste. Most of what we burn, or in terms of nuclear use, is wasted. It's completely wasted. It's no value to us. So that shows incredible inefficiencies with regard to our fossil fuel and nuclear use. The third thing I want to emphasize is the overall energy need. We can say that we use 100 quad, but ultimately, the only energy that we need at the end of the day is the 33. So you can see incredible inefficiencies in the entire system. Much of that is in the transportation system because of petroleum, excessive inefficiency to move vehicles. We're seeing a shift to electric cars. Those are much more efficient. And as I'll get into, that is very important for us to keep in mind. Let's recognize one thing. We spend so much money on energy. We know that we spend money on electricity and heat. We get the bill every month. We also spend money on gasoline. And that's gasoline for us in our cars or trucks, but it's also gasoline in terms of when we fly, when we use a train, when we get on a bus. Any form of transportation is using some form of gasoline, petroleum product. And then everything we buy, food, furniture, anything, clothes, has an energy sticker. Energy was used to make it, to perhaps even grow it in the first place, and then to ship it and to promote it. All of those things have an energy sticker. So when we look at our overall expenditures in life, there's a tremendous amount that's spent on energy alone. So it will behoove us to reduce that cost. And by switching our energy, we can do that. At the local level, recognizing how much money we spend on energy, is there a way we can lower our costs and keep money close to home? The more money we spend locally, the more it gets recirculated and it improves everyone's lot in the process. What role do municipalities play? This is something that's a little bit a mystery to many. It turns out that in the United States, most energy is provided by private enterprises. This would be the case when you go buy gasoline, or in fact, when you buy electricity. But it turns out that some cities own parts of their energy portfolios, particularly electricity. And this is an important thing to keep in mind, that exists, that there are cities that do that. And many of those cities are very large. Some of the largest cities in the United States, in fact, fit that description. So if we think about that, if we think about the possibility of cities operating and owning part of their energy portfolios, they can run those on a nonprofit basis. And that is opportunities for decentralization, which can improve reliability of electricity, but also provides local control. And that local control can regulate the pricing. In our city, as in a previous video, we own and operate the water system, delivery of water to each person's home. And that allows us to maintain a very high quality water and also regulate the price accordingly. When we think about how this is done in the state of Illinois, there's an organization, IMEA, and this is the municipal power. And these are the cities that operate and often work together to understand how to provide affordable and accessible energy, in this case electricity, to its customers and its residents. Here are the cities that and quite a few in our state that have that ability to do that, and they benefit from that. Many other cities that are not listed here, including my own, essentially do not have that right any longer. They forfeited that authority, and they are not in a position to do that at this time. But but laws can change, and we can learn from those cities that maintain that authority. This is also done with gas, not as widely done, but it is also done. And here's an organization that is working to create public gas for its residents. Nationally, it turns out 49 million Americans are purchasing community-owned, not-for-profit electricity, and that's a large number. There's well over 300 million people in the United States, so it's not half. It's a subset of that, but it's almost 2,000 communities, and includes cities like Austin, Nashville, Los Angeles, and Seattle. And this is important to keep in mind as we think about our municipal future with respect to energy. However, just because energy, it might be public in the way I've described it, it doesn't mean that it's moving forward in terms of the energy shift that's necessary. And this shows you that the numbers on the left and the numbers on the right are very similar, indicating that public power isn't necessarily any cleaner or more sustainable than all utilities. And that's something that all of us need to recognize. Now, there is the ability with public power to make shifts, but that shift does not really happen in most communities. If we look at Galesburg's energy, where I live and where I'm the mayor, here are the things to keep in mind. We purchased electricity through aggregation. This was done through referendum and a vote by the residents and the voters. This has been going on for over 10 years. We currently pay about 5.5 cents per kilowatt hour, which is a very good rate. By aggregating our power, everyone in the city, including small businesses, have access to that rate. And they can obviously purchase power elsewhere if they choose, but our rate is very competitive with anyone that I've seen. Now, this is a 3-year contract, so it's going to be up for renewal fairly soon. And when we did that contract, when the city council decided on this, we actually agreed to 100% renewable energy. And so we are, in our city, moving the needle in the shift that I've described. We purchase natural gas as residents in kind of standard ways from a private enterprise. And Ameren, the company that you generally pay our power bill to, energy bill, they own and distribute the pipes and the lines. And so that we pay in our bill a charge for that. And so it's kind of a hybrid system in reality. Businesses, both small, as I mentioned, can apply or be part of the aggregation program. Larger businesses usually negotiate, or institutions negotiate their own electricity and gas plans. The government of Galesburg, we purchased 100% low carbon electricity. This was a fairly recent contract. There was a shift from 100% renewable to low carbon. I believe that really is a shift from renewable energy to nuclear, which I don't personally feel is ideal, but was the decision of the council. We purchased natural gas in kind of a normal standard way, but we are involved in an energy audit currently, and we're looking ways to conserve energy and utilize renewable energy. In that vein, one of the projects that we worked on, this is a overhead Google map image near Oquawka, the town of Oquawka, in western Illinois, right on the Mississippi River. You can see the boundary with Iowa. To the bottom right, you see two white buildings. That's where our water plant operation is. And then to the right of that, you see all these vertical lines, and those are solar panels. We began operating that system in early 2020. It's about 1.9 megawatts, and that is able to provide about 50% of the power that's required to pump the water from Oquawka to Galesburg, which is about a 30-mile trek, and we're pumping, around 5 to 10 million gallons a day. So we were able to offset our energy costs, and we're saving, we estimate, about $50,000 a year because of this program. If we look at the Galesburg water plant in Galesburg itself, you see the two large circles in the center. Those are our big water tanks. One's 4 million gallons, the other one's 5 million gallons. That's where the water from Aquaca is pumped to and stored. To the left, you see a big field, and we have agreed to purchase solar electricity from an array that is going to go in there shortly at a cost of 4.2 cents per kilowatt hour. This is phenomenal, and we're very excited. And that rate is actually fixed for the next 20 years, which is a remarkable feat for us. And it's going to save us, we estimate, about $25,000 a year per year for the duration of this time. Here's an announcement of that, and just to kind of demonstrate the savings that would accrue over time. Lombard Middle School is a school in our district. Our school district is very progressive from the standpoint of renewable energy. In the left picture, you see the buildings in the center, and then you see an array of kind of horizontal lines, which include the solar panels. If you do a close-up, you'll see that there's a lot of solar on the rooftops as well. This is just one of many projects that the school district has been a part of. There's some panels out at the high school. There's some panels, significant panels as well at the old district office. Tremendous amounts of savings have accrued from this effort. And there's a lot of even more significant solar and even wind projects in the pipeline. And you can see the estimated time of when they'll be in place. We're very excited, I am, about this, and we're shifting to renewable energy, and this is providing great benefit not only to our community, but in terms of the energy itself, but also significant savings economically, both in terms of reduced costs, but also significant tax payments on these farms and arrays. So what are Galesburg's energy needs, and can they be met with renewable energy? I've noted this is just one typical city in the United States. Obviously focus on it because I'm here and very intrigued by the possibilities. So in a previous video, I have shown that Galesburg, which is about 30,000 people, its current energy needs, all energy, not just electricity, could be provided with solar with about 4% of the county land. 4% of the county land. That's a very small postage stamp on the entire county. Illinois' current electricity needs could be provided by solar on about 2% of its ag land. So that's also a phenomenal thing to think about. Now, it's also important to note that we don't need to use ag land. We can use buildings, we can use marginal land, and so the actual amount of ag land that would be necessary would be much reduced from the numbers above. And perhaps most shockingly to many who may be watching this is the following. If we electrify our energy system, which we're doing so through electric cars, but we could also do so through electric heat pumps instead of gas-powered furnaces. And there's many other things that could be electrified, like electric stoves as opposed to gas stoves. All of those things are underway, and if they were to increase, and there's expectations that they will increase and pick up speed over time, this is the fact that if we electrify the system, we could decrease our total energy needs by over 50%. There's a great book by Saul Griffith, MIT Press, 2024. Check it out. There are many other works, Jacobson and others, who have demonstrated this as well. So this is a known fact and not widely disseminated or understood yet by the general population. But it's an important piece in our understanding of municipal power, because if we're in the future, in the next 20 years or 30 years, we're going to need half the power that we have today. That's going to be something beneficial, but it's also something we can plan for. Here's how that might work. This is an example from a source that looks at Australia. And this is a residential household. And you see that 102 kilowatt hours per day is what they may be using now. And in some future, it's electrified, they'll be using only 37. So that's a significant reduction, more than 50%. You see where the bulk of that is in car fueling, going way down, much less energy required, as I mentioned earlier. There's also no or very few electrical generation losses. That's a very significant savings as well. And then space heating. If that's done with like a heat pump, electric heat pump, as opposed to a gas furnace, there's a lot of savings as well. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying that there could be a 50% or more reduction in energy use in the near future. There's some amazing news that's been released. This just came out last week. The federal government has provided money to $7 billion worth ultimately, but the Illinois Climate Bank and Finance Authority was awarded $156 million. And this was to be used to provide the benefits of solar energy to low-income and disadvantaged communities across the state. So this is only going to drive more and more solar energy downstate, also in the city of Chicago, for the benefits of all above. And it's a great thing to and these types of grants are making their way into the public domain, and it's really picking up. But what should you do first before you start adding renewable energy, whether that be to your house or, in fact, even on a building like you saw earlier? And the thing I would recommend is do an energy audit. And we're underway doing one. I think it might be the first that Galesburg has done, certainly in the recent past. And this is going to allow us to look for opportunities for further energy conservation in our community. And it's also going to hopefully help us point us in the direction of how we can electrify and save energy and money in the future. Here's an article published in a Renewable and Sustainable Energy Reviews in 2020. It's an article written by several authors from a university in Denmark. And it's just one of many such articles that point to what is the world going to look like with 100% renewable energy. And I don't want to spend a lot of time, but I do want to highlight, how this relates to cities. And as we move to renewable energy, how can we do this alone? And I'm here to say we cannot. But so we have to work. There's aspects we can do by ourselves, but we'll need to look at the bigger picture and work with other communities as well. So here are the keys. These are my thoughts, and then I'll have several thoughts from the article itself. But we need infrastructure. This is one of the challenges right now. We may have solar on a farm or a structure, but is there enough infrastructure like towers that carry the lines and the lines themselves, the electric lines? Are they sufficient to handle this new energy production? And the reality is, in many cases, they're not. And so just when the federal government initially put and subsidized the expansion of electricity throughout the country, we need another wave of that in order for us to be able to put all this renewable energy on our system. Also, we're going as we transition away from fossil fuels, we're obviously going to be using fossil fuels quite a bit, and these don't come from Galesburg or Knox County. So we're going to have to get them from elsewhere. And so that requires us to have good partnerships and relationships with people and communities and countries beyond our borders. Now, within the study, they emphasize that they believe biomass is probably that last energy demand. So as we transition, eventually that last piece is going to not be renewable energy necessarily, but a biomass product. So that biomass is going to likely have to come from somewhere outside of Galesburg, and that's going to require relationships. We also have people transporting themselves outside of the city. There are people are also still going to fly and such, and there's freight that's going to come through our community. So those are things we have to keep in mind, and our energy needs to be adaptive to those kinds of things. There's also industrial demand that is going to be required, and that's something that may change over time, and we need to assist the industrial sectors of our community to make that transition smooth and feasible for all parties involved. Renewable energy will be shared across regions. I believe that Galesburg and Knox County can be a significant producers of renewable energy, not just for our community, but for communities within the Midwest. And additionally, there's going to be zones with have higher winds, say Western Iowa. We'll probably be sharing energy with those locations maybe that have higher solar content resources. So these are things that need to be worked out, recognizing who has the power and when. In a related point, we have to think of our nation's needs, but we also have to think of other nations' needs. If energy poverty, as I mentioned, is a primary problem in our society, it's one of the reasons, and that's one of the reasons why we have some of the conflicts and some of the hardships in our world today, is that people lack energy, nations lack energy. So we're going to have to work on peaceful solutions to importing and exporting this energy, and we might as well get started now. And municipalities can play a role in that, particularly those that are going to be producing significant amounts of excess energy. So that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed that. There's a lot of components to that whole conversation. I have other videos on energy that you can look at if you have time. Next time we're going to talk about parks, and I'll see you in a week or so. Thank you.